years, last 2 as a JAG, and I'm now an attorney at McGuire Woods in Raleigh.
Great. And Jimmy Paul. You need to unmute.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Captain Jimmy Paul. I am the Chief of Legal Assistance at 82nd Airborne Division here on Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
You have our condolences and thanks. Let's see, anyone else we've missed? All right, well, welcome aboard again. This is, hopefully we won't have as many of these Zoom calls as in the future. We'll be able to see each other and maybe have a hybrid to carry in so people don't have to come. Bert won't have to get out of his bunker out in the mountains, but we'll overcome. So did the conflict of interest. We did the quick intros. Mike has sent around with the package some detailed minutes. I don't know whether everybody's had a chance to look at them, but I'll entertain any motion to approve and then a second, and we can get those done. Are there any comments on that before we actually take a motion?
I'll
If not,
move the approval of the minutes.
Thanks, John. John Wilkes.
I'll second it.
And the second was
Gil.
Gil. Good. All right. All those in favor or any discussion? Otherwise, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Assuming no opposed. Are there any opposed? All right. Those minutes will stand approved. Thanks, Mike Archer, for preparing these. And it may be in absentia, as I recall, for the last one, but well done. I think you must have got on late now that I recall it. The next item on the agenda is the CLE report. Booker's not here, but he sent in a note, I recall, to Jennifer saying that it looks like the fall's still out for UNC as a CLE opportunity, but we're still targeting perhaps in the spring and doing the same type of CLE that we had there. Mike Archer and I have discussed adding a little more breadth and depth to the planned November 18 NCBA MVL section, kind of smaller focused CLE. That's November 18. And we may add a few things in there. Mike, I'm still working on that. But that's kind of where we're going with the CLE, is to have something live / remote access on November 18th at the Bar Center in Cary that will be focused on, generally it focuses on the veteran appeals type things relating to disability petitions and appeals. But we're also going to round it out because Mike's got a few items and we'll get Brooker to talk about some things. So it'll be a kind of a mini or hybrid LAMP participation CLE that we can kind of join in with the NCBA MVL if that seems all right with everyone. And then we'll go to the full blown one, hopefully in the spring, and we should all have clearances from the school, and we can get the speakers from the school and the everything that goes with the school, which is all good and well at Carolina. Mike, anything to add with that?
That's all accurate. I would add that since our last meeting, I have been contacted by the Military Officers Association of America. They have various programs. They wanted me to be a panelist on a program on the 28th of July concerning on and off base military housing issues. I've agreed to do that, but I don't have any additional coordinating instructions at this point. When I do, I'll certainly forward them.
Perfect.
Kirk, I think Mark has raised his digital hand up there.
Oh, yeah, Marco, go.
Yeah, Kirk, I can make a presentation on a subject that I think would be interesting called military disability retired pay. Most of us, when we think about disability, think in terms of service-connected disabilities and disability compensation from the VA. But there's an entirely different area of a forced retirement due to a service member's unfitness to perform his or her duties. And that's MDRP, Military Disability Retired Pay, under Chapter 61 of Title 10. I can put together a 1-hour program with PowerPoint on that if anybody would be interested in how it works, and in the context of divorce, whether any portion of military disability retired pay can be A, divided by the court as marital property, or B, treated as support for purposes of alimony or child support.
Do I hear anyone else? Because that's a damn good idea, Mark. We got you. We'll put you on the list. Unless somebody objects, which if they do, please call me and I'll find out where you park your car and send Bert over there. But Mark, let's put you on the list. I'll get you hooked up with the coordinators for that CLE as well as Mike. Mark, that's damn nice of you to volunteer because that's a really good topic for it. Spot on, really. So thanks, Margo. Good stuff there. Anything else on CLE? Because we know Mike Archer can be both on and off base quite a bit, but this housing thing will be nice for him. I need a rim shot on that one. All right, the next we go, any CLE? Without seeing any hands or anything. Major command updates. Let's go through our major commands. Let's start with Mike, you've got Lejeune. I think you've done something in writing. Could you give us a quick overview of that?
Well, that was the Lejeune update for the last meeting, and I have one for this meeting as well. If you bear with me, I'll go ahead and grab that.
Right, that was April.
So we've got Tropical Storm Elsa, no effect here, just a little bit of rain. We're preparing our annual hurricane article, Hurricanes and the Law. What are the implications? And the main change from the previous year is we're going to have some information, and this ties into something later about the dispute resolution mechanism that was mandated by the National Defense Authorization Act. In our last meeting, we noted that the school enrollment bill had been enacted, and I don't think the procedures have caught up with the law at this point. There was a law that said we'll make it easier to have certain service members be able to enroll in North Carolina public school if the commander makes certain findings, but commanders don't know anything about this. And the affidavits that the Department of Public Instruction had the caregivers and the parents sign, they need to be amended to reflect the new law. And I don't believe they have been at this point. I mean, we can make our own affidavits that'll cover the bases, but unless I'm mistaken, DPS probably wants to see people using their own forms. There's a labor shortage, and it's affecting a lot of things, including household goods shipment. And our folks here are saying if you want to move within the United States on orders, your household goods aren't going to be there for 8 weeks. And let's see. And that's all I care to talk about at this point.
Okay, you going to talk about the military working group later? That was one of your handouts you sent.
That was from that was an update for the previous meeting. The items that I've sent that I talked about this time are since the last meeting.
Okay. All right. Anything more about any of the handouts you sent, including the universal lease dispute resolution, other than what you've talked about in connection with the housing?
dispute resolution, that's an item on the new business, and we'll get to that. Now, that's an important one, but that's in the new business section.
Got it. I see that. All right. Let's jump to Bragg and do the special victims folks. There's one thing I'm curious about, and I know everyone is what kind of status and planning is there if we have new prosecutors that pull outside the normal chain of command for sexual assaults and those types of claims that's being bandied about in Washington. That may be a bit echelons above what's going on at Bragg, but any report from the special victims advocates?
So, sir, we're not, we haven't yet implemented any changes to our processes in anticipation of, I assume you're referring to the Senate bill, Senator Gillibrand's proposed bill. So we're not changing anything until anything gets passed. But as far as just our work here at Bragg, it's interesting in that some of our legal assistance attorneys, including myself, are dual-hatted. So we'll do legal assistance and serve as special victim counsel. But we do have right now 3, soon to be 4 full-time special victim counsels. I was actually just at Schofield in Hawaii for a sentencing this past week. And so, you know, we will cover cases all over if the situation requires it. But also here at Bragg, and I don't want to speak for the 82nd legal assistance chief who's on the call, and hi to you. We're looking forward to getting to know you too. But one thing that we're always gearing up for is the possibility for deployment. So we're constantly doing emergency deployment readiness exercises, and it's very possible that those will be the real deal here in the next few weeks. So we're always gearing up for that possibility. One thing that I've been seeing a lot of is complaints from soldiers with the substance abuse disorder program here at Bragg. They're complaining that either they're requesting inpatient treatment. Some of these cases are quite acute, alcoholism and other addiction issues, and they're not being afforded the possibility for inpatient treatment, which TRICARE would cover for a variety of reasons. And so one thing that a couple of us here have been looking into is Army Regulation 600-85. It's our substance abuse disorder regulation. And it says that commanders have to create an environment where getting, help for substance abuse disorders is encouraged. And in some cases, commanders are here actually telling soldiers, come talk to us if you have a substance abuse issue. If you've done anything that you want to talk to us about, tell us. And then the soldiers will disclose some of their past use history to their commanders, and then they're getting separated immediately based on that information. So that's one thing that we're looking into. Obviously at Bragg, we see the whole gamut of things. Same, obviously at the 82nd as well. They see the whole gamut of legal assistance issues, but overall, it's just business as usual here. And then I'll turn it over to Miss Egan as well. She's the real expert.
I don't really have much to add other than I do casualty assistance, which is kind of a morbid topic. So I'm not going to dwell on that.
And one thing I'll add that's been interesting lately, actually 2 quick things. One is the new promotion boards for officers regulation that went into effect last month for the Army, and I think for the Air Force it went into effect in March. And that's where for promotion boards for 04 and above, they'll consider anything in the restricted file in addition to anything in an officer's permanent performance file. So that's new. That could include a speeding ticket that requires a court appearance. So in North Carolina, anything that's 20 miles or over the speed limit would go to your promotion board for major or above. And then the second thing that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is we've seen a lot of inquiries here about titling, specifically people who are titled and whether or not their adverse information is founded or not, and how that goes into the DCII for 40 years, so which 27 federal agencies can access. So it's affected soldiers who want to go into federal service elsewhere. It's also been the grounds for separation, even if ultimately there was no adverse action taken against them. So titling's been a huge issue of late in this office, or maybe we've just been tuning into it more lately. And, you know, the only thing that we've found that can successfully get a soldier from being untitled, so to speak, is if it was literally a case of mistaken identity. So if a soldier's investigated for something, it could have effects on their career in federal service for literally 40 years after the fact.
One adjunct to that, you talked about the restricted file. It sounds like it's unrestricted file for, it won't matter if you're 04 or above.
Right.
And not below. But one thing, I think I saw something that some judge in Texas was essentially going after the Air Force, or one of the lawsuits was allowed to proceed against the Air Force for not, or for discharging without appropriately advising of a gun issue or a psych issue, and the one that shot up the church crowd. I don't know how that's going to ripple effect on disclosures. So I would be attuned to that. I expect that's down the road. All right. Thanks
Hey,
much.
Kirk,
Yep.
David Hayden has his hand raised.
Yeah, go ahead. Shoot.
I think he's intentionally ignoring me. All right, Captain, I had a real quick question about the now considering restricted information on promotions. Is that applied retroactively as well?
That's a really good question. Because it just went into effect this month, we don't have like a test case yet, but my understanding is that anything that is currently in the restricted portion of someone's OMPF, at least in the Army, is now fair game for 04 and above. So I'll give you an example, sir. So I have a major who's been selected for her 05 board, and 10 years ago, she did not put a date on a referral memo that referred one of her soldiers to behavioral health 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, an IG investigation came up with adverse information against her that she improperly referred a soldier to behavioral health. Now, the backstory is the soldier ended up getting separated from the Army for under Chapter 9 later on, and had significant behavioral health issues in the subsequent years. But because she didn't put the date on there and the IG had founded adverse information, that information is actually going to trigger for her the old promotion review board, because that information came because she was selected for a board before June. But now had she been selected in June or later, she would have to go to that pre-board. I think it's called the SSRB, the Selective Soldier Review Board, that considers the information before someone goes to their promotion board. So to answer your question, I think the answer is yes. Whether it could be challenged at the Pentagon or not remains to be seen, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I originally had another question, but when you start talking about that just raised that red flag. I had to ask that question. But going back to Kirk's earlier question to you about the impact of the pending legislation in the Senate, just like all Senate bills or anything, once it's ultimately becomes a law, should it become a law, which is still an unanswered question, then they go through the regulatory process of writing the rules to implement it. So we're not going to see anything like that come anywhere near fruition in the next year or so. You guys will probably be retired from the military before they finally work out all the kinks on that one. Not that I'm at all speculative, but I also think you're going to be seeing a lot of lawsuits from people who are experiencing adverse administrative actions from just simply being accused of a crime 20 years ago or 10 years ago. To me, it's just unconscionable that they're even opening up that can of worms. But I'm old news, so
I'm gonna add it. Hell, how the hell they collect the stuff? That's the hardest part. Not a restricted file sitting in somewhere that you can just open up in Pandora's box. So that'll be interesting, and I assume it's going to affect reserve components as well. Same type of logic. So,
yes, sir. It should apply across the board. And to your the previous gentleman's point about new legislation, there hasn't been any talk anecdotally about it changing the SVC program significantly. So I don't expect in my specific role, even if something did get passed and the regulations were passed or promulgated in the near future, that it would necessarily affect an SVC's work.
Okay. Be the prosecutors themselves.
Right.
And
And the
Bert
commanders,
Jake's on. You need to make a note that Bert's on. So welcome, Bert. All right. Captain Paul, what's going on at 82?
About the same as core. Nothing to add. We're experiencing the same thing as core is experiencing, sir.
Well, that was easy. And then do we have a guard rep on? Bert, do you want to cover that?
Sir, I think Michelle is on. Michelle?
Michelle, what's going on?
Yes. I don't really have an update, to be honest. We are, we finished our tax season here and we're just plugging away with legal assistance matters, back in the office post-COVID. Colonel Kemp, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
I believe the biggest thing that we've done force projection wise is that we're still manning vaccination sites throughout the state. I think we're at 34 different sites. We're ramping that down to conclude with the fiscal year, but it has been an extremely successful mission for us getting out to us, being the North Carolina National Guard, for getting us out in the community. And the biggest takeaway is watching the Air Guard and the Army Guard working hand to hand at the tactical level. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bert. Appreciate it. Thanks, Michelle. Any other reports? I don't know if you got a reserve component. Roy, are you still in? What's going on over there, Ellie?
Hi, Kirk. Hi, everyone. Nothing to report on the reserve side. Finally getting back to be in person, so enjoying that. But I'm in the 108th in the embedded unit out of Charlotte. Just starting to get back to normal from post-pandemic life, hopefully. Thank
Who's
you.
the current SGA at 108?
Colonel Barrett.
Ah, okay. Good. All right. Anything else from the field? No, we're Seymour Johnson. We need those Air Force guys in gear and gals in gear. So we'll get that covered down. All right. After that, we have webpage status. But first of all, any other questions on major command updates? Anyone for our uniformed folks on the line here? If not, Vi, give us any update on the web.
Okay, Kurt, short and sweet. We've had a number of updates to committee member information during the last period of time. If I encourage everyone, as I do every time, please look at the roster, make sure that your information is correct and up to date. If you're supposed to be, or you know someone who's supposed to be on the roster and is not there, please drop me an email with the name and the appropriate information. Copy Jennifer Porter and Jennifer Duncan, and we'll continue to keep the roster current. According to, or to the best of my knowledge, during the period of time since our last LAMP meeting, we have posted no new materials or updated materials to the website. I don't know if Mark or anyone else has posted something that I haven't heard of, but based on my information, we have not updated anything on the website substantively. As far as fall CLE activities are concerned, Kurt, once you and Mark come up with, or Mike, come up with a program, we'd like to make sure that we get a timely and complete advertisement on the website of the existence of that opportunity and how people can participate. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, bye. Good stuff. And we'll do that.
Kirk, I have one addition to make on that. I will be sending to Bai this month a revision on the silent partner on military disability retired pay. I made some tweaks and changes, nothing substantive, but that will be the only change that I plan on making for silent partner.
Great. Thanks again, Mark, as always, for preparing those. They're very useful tools. And I commend to the legal assistance folks out there, go on our web and you'll find really helpful information on there on a variety of topics that may not be naturally incoming to your LA folks, but come up once in a while.
Kurt, I guess there is one more thing I should add, and I neglected to say. For all the users of our website, if you see some area on that is not covered on the website that you would like to see covered, please send me an email and I will endeavor to find someone that can provide some input for the website on that topic. We want to keep the scope of what we're providing current.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Kurt.
One other thing that I wanted to mention, Kirk, and that is I'm concerned that legal assistance attorneys out there are not getting instruction at the basic course on the availability of silent partner. If anybody in the audience has been to the basic course and has heard of silent partner, send me an email and tell me about it. Because most recently, I have asked the chiefs of legal assistance to find out from their schools, are they even teaching this at the basic course? It's essential that people find out how these areas of family law are handled. And if they don't know the resource that we have in North Carolina, then they're missing a great deal of good instruction. So I've asked for that from the chiefs of legal assistance, but I'd be interested in knowing for any of those who are delivering legal assistance and have been to the school basic course, did you ever hear about silent partner? Let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. I was in Charlottesville last 2 weekends ago and basic course is there up and running. So it's a good time to be asking that question. Also, for those that are in uniform, don't forget the silent partner is a good hip pocket training type thing for Wednesday afternoons if you haven't had time, or any other type of useful instruction time you have. All right. Thanks, Bai. Thanks, Mark. We're at new business. Before we get to Mike's privatized housing dispute resolution process, I did want to provide a quick update, and Dave Hayden jump in too, on the legislation that's currently running through that affects us. There's a House 297, which is a DMV, deployed armed forces exemptions. Essentially, guys and gals that come back from theater, they're caught driving without a license if they're an actual deployed member. When the license expired, and have obtained a renewed license within 30 days after returning from deployment, and in that window, that's recognized that as a full defense. The other is there's a remote conversion to the holder of a full provisional license issued to a state resident if the provisional license holder is deployed out of state as a member of the armed forces. That's in the Rules Committee now. H76 is a modernized debt settlement prohibition. Makes it where, would make it where no person directly or through affiliates shall engage in, offer to engage in, or attempt to engage in debt adjusting or debt settlement. If they do, they'd be guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. That's sitting in the Senate Rules Committee. It's a finance bill, and then therefore we'll make the crossover. Then there's H584. We've talked about before, vet post-traumatic stress as a mitigating factor. If they're currently diagnosed as a PTSD as a result of military service in one of more of the combat zones and is undergoing treatment, the court can use that as a mitigating factor during sentencing. That's sitting in the Rules Committee as well in the Senate. There's a Military Readiness and Rural Resilience Act, maybe resistance, H323, and it incentivizes buffering of military installations from incompatible development and protect floodplains in hurricane disaster counties through the use of time-limited tax credits. That's out there. It's in the House Finance. And that'll make it, since it's a finance bill, that'll make the crossover. And then the one that everyone's waiting for and Dave's worked on is H83. It's eliminate income tax for military retirees. It's a big one to try to keep our soldiers in our state on retirement. That is sitting in the Senate Rules Committee at this time. That does have some momentum. Hopefully it will come out. And Dave, if you got anything more on that, those are the ones that seem to affect our active duty folks the most. Dave Hayden, anything to add on 83?
Well, just to clarify, if you came on active duty prior to 1984 or 84 up to about August, you were grandfathered in under an old case. But anybody who came on active duty or didn't have 5 years of federal service for retirement purposes by 1989, their retired pay is going to be taxed by the state of North Carolina. I did get notice that the 34th state in the United States, not including North Carolina, has granted an exemption for military retiree pay. So if North Carolina wants to adhere to its claim to be the most military-friendly state, they better play catch-up and pass that legislation. The chances of passing it have never been stronger. There's been a groundswell of support through a lot of veterans organizations that I'm aware of. There's certainly the North Carolina Military Affairs Commission has issued a statement in support of passing some kind of tax exemption for military retirees. So all you in uniform, this would apply to you. If you stayed in long enough to retire and you were interested in staying in North Carolina, hopefully this will pass and we'll encourage you to stay in this great state going forward. Yes, sir.
Hey, Joe. There's some chat. Was there any questions on those?
I had a question.
Yes,
I had a question. Dave, does that include folks who have a mixture between active duty and reserve time, but are retired?
It's federal retirement, right? When you got a mixture of active and reserve, yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. There you go, Bert.
Yeah, it definitely covered Bert. So, all right. So I want to slip in that legislative update, the one on the agenda. So thanks for bearing with me on that. Because there's some good stuff going on and support grassroots, any of your folks there if you come out. Understanding we're not a lobbying group, we're not doing that, but I just wanted to put those out there so we know and can plan accordingly. All right, Mike Archer had a new business on housing dispute resolution process. Take it away, Mike.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Let's get some background on this first, and it also ties into, I think one of the other committee members was talking about things that come out of Congress don't necessarily have an immediate effect. Hurricane Florence to September 2018 stays in North Carolina, pretty much sits on top of Jacksonville for a week. And as a result of that, we suffered $3.6 billion with a B, $billion. And as well as there's a lot of on-base houses were completely destroyed. Others that were rendered had some defects in them. And our folks, our PPV partners, that is the folks that run the private commercial companies that run base housing, were not particularly swift at fixing things on base. And there was a report about that and testimony in both the House and in the Senate. And then the NDAA for 2020 came out and said, we're going to do something about this. There's going to be a tenant bill of rights. The Secretary of Defense was directed to have a standard dispute resolution mechanism and was also directed to have a universal lease that would have certain features. Well, the lease is still in negotiation. The tenant bill of rights is, as far as I can tell, very aspirational, without teeth to it. But the dispute resolution mechanism, which became effective here last month, at least on paper, does have some teeth to it. And it has a process, and then it gives the commander some authority to deal, to make decisions. The process, I'll kind of summarize it. It says, make your informal complaint to your local housing property manager. This is on base. If you can't get it resolved there, then go up to the regional property managing officer. And if you don't get it resolved there, then go to your military housing office and make a formal complaint. And when you make a formal complaint, what happens is there's an investigator that's assigned. Subject matter experts are assigned by the commander, such as mold experts or whatever the case may be. There's a report that's issued and recommendations, and then the military tenant during all of this process can say, well, I want to have my rent not paid to the landlord, the property manager. I want it paid into a segregated fund that's not going to them. And then at the end of this process, the commander is going to decide what happens to those funds. So ultimately, the commander has some authority. One is he can say, I'm directing you, property manager, to put this service member in one of your other houses. Do it now. Or I'm directing you to fix these things by a date certain, and if you're off by, a certain designated, if you don't get it done by then, you're going to start losing rent. Then they also have the authority to say, we're going to let this person out of the lease without any additional penalties, and the commander has the authority to say, this is what we're going to do with those 2 months of rent that were in the segregated fund. So all that's pretty good stuff on paper. But I'll bet if you went to your military housing office and said, well, where's the form we're supposed to use for making these complaints? Who do these complaints go to? What's the telephone number of the local property manager that you're supposed to send these things to? What is the point of contact for the regional property manager? I think the answer is going to be a shrug of the shoulders and a kind of, I don't know. So we've got these things on paper, but I don't think that they necessarily exist in fact yet. And we're working on doing that, and hopefully we'll get that soon. The other big piece is that it doesn't matter too much about any of these things unless we have some sort of a publicity campaign to inform tenants that they have these rights in the first place. So we're working with our housing authority folks here. We're working with the property managers to see if we can push that along. And any products we prepare, any progress we make, we'll share as well.
Interesting. Mike, is there an appeal from the commander's decision somehow? Seems to me the commander can withhold money for an off-base private.
There is no appeal. However, the order also says a couple of interesting things. This does not preclude anybody from going to court and litigating the matter, although as a practical matter, that's a pretty expensive and time-consuming proposition because we're talking about places of exclusive federal jurisdiction, so literally a federal case. But there isn't any. You have input to the report at various stages, both the property manager and the tenant, but the commander makes the decision. That's it, unless you want to go to court.
Interesting. All right. Any questions of Mike on what I think is a pretty unique dispute resolution system for housing, which we're going to see more of. Housing's the new flavor of the day for quality of life in the military base and installations. So I expect that to be front and center for a lot of these things coming up.
Yeah, and we're going to have to figure out, what sort of volume. As a legal assistance office, the law says legal assistance will be provided to the same extent you provide legal assistance to eligible clients for other things. So we kind of have to figure, are we looking at a couple of these a week? Are we looking at 100 of them a week? We're going to handle it differently depending on the volume, and we don't have a handle on that yet either. I'd also mention, for the SJAs, that while the NDAA says that the regional commander is the decision-making authority, frankly, I don't see the 2 or 3-star getting personally involved, and he's probably going to delegate somebody, perhaps the SJA, to do this.
Interesting. All right. Any questions of Mike on this? All right. Thank you. Any other new business or business that we've missed from our agenda? Anything for the good of the cause? Any announcements of events or activities upcoming? We should be on the radar screen.
Sir, I have one thing to add. I don't know if it was brought up at a past LAMP meeting. I apologize if it was. This is my first, but we got the Army Policy Division for Legal Assistance to make an informal interpretation that stepchildren are not covered under AR 608-99 for family support. So I don't know if that comes up in the analog regulations for the other services, but that came out a couple months ago.
They are not covered?
So a stepchild can be on a service member's, on a soldier's DEERS on their, get their benefits, their TRICARE, et cetera. But that does not mean that the stepchild will be considered a dependent under 608-99. And where this came up here was when the soldier was actually still married with, still married and living with the wife, not separated, but all of the children were actually removed by CPS to another guardian, and the command was wanting him to pay for both his natural born children and the stepchildren who were removed because they were on his DEERS. But again, our policy division said they're not covered. Another thing to bring up, and I don't know if anyone's seen this come up in your respective legal assistance offices, but in the Army, at least, with our finance regulation, if you are an unmarried parent living with the other parent, so basically if two people are partners, they're both parenting in the home, any number of children, but they're not married, the male soldier, at least here on Fort Bragg, has been forced to set up an allotment through finance for his partner in order to get the BAH with dependence rate, and can't just say, hey, I'm not married, but I live with my girlfriend or whatever. But the female soldier does not have to do that. So that's an interesting issue that's come up here, at least at Fort Bragg.
Couple issues, Mark Sullivan, it's a little bit somewhat in your lane, a couple of those.
Yeah, it is. As a matter of fact, we have a case in the office right now in which the issue involves step-parent responsibility or stepchild and eligibility for TRICARE. I'd be interested in getting a conversation going with Captain Scribner about stepchildren offline so we can talk about that issue.
Excellent. Captain,
I could comment
out there
for the Marine Corps that the stepchildren have never been considered to be a dependent for the purpose of dependent support. That just, I mean, that was just clear from the beginning.
Good. Marines are always one step ahead in that game, huh? All right, Mark and Captain Scrivener, can you make sure you pass on each other's contact information, or you can go, obviously on the webpage, be a good place to find Mark Sullivan's contact information.
Absolutely.
I'll do that on chat right now.
That'd be perfect.
Likewise.
Hang in a second till Chris, you can write that down for Mark.
And Kirk, Bert Kemp has his hand raised.
Well, Bert, shoot.
Sir, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for being late to this meeting, but I did not know if there was a announcement mentioned that I guess now it's Lieutenant General Stuart Risch is the TJAG of the Army. And so I didn't know if you had announced it, but I thought that was very interesting coming from the deputy's position. I don't know how many times we have done that in the past.
That's a good point, Bert. I talked to some folks up at the school, and Allie Martin is going to be the new, who we know from 82nd, is going to be the new one-star school commandant. So she's moving there. And who's going to be the deputy?
I think it's Berger, right, sir?
Joe Berger is going to be the deputy. And then, so the 3 1-stars, only one advanced, and I think they're going to keep that system somewhat, even though Stuart will be a general officer 12 years. But it, before that, we had people jumping from 1-star to 3-star as a jump. But this looks like it's going to, who knows? They change it all the time. But
yes, sir.
It's going from 2 to 3.
And sir, I wanted to chime in real quickly. It was mentioned earlier about this board between the time that someone is DA selected to the time that they actually pin on. And I am just validating what the captain said. This board is a real thing. I have had already a colleague of mine from War College reach out to me privately to discuss an issue that just came up and reared its, for lack of a better word, ugly head from years ago. So this is a whole new field. It looks like is going to erupt in this world with this new law. So,
does the board request self-disclosure of adverse actions, or is it if you find it, you find it? If you don't find it, you don't. Ask for a friend.
Yeah, no. I don't know of any. I don't know of any form or any attestation as to what what that board is. I think it's automatic. The DA, if DA picks you up, the Department of the Army picks you up, then it goes right to this board, and then they do a search and they look into everything. Mm-hmm. IG, CID. If it's in a system, they're going to find it, and they're taking their time. So
interesting. All right, whole new world. Thanks, Berto. All right. Anything else for the good of the cause? If not, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So when's our next meeting, by the way? Yeah?
I don't think the date is set, but we'll definitely get that out to you. It should be in October, around the 2nd or 3rd week. Oh, wait, actually, no, it's early this year. I think it's like the 1st week of October, but hopefully we'll be in person. So more information to follow on that.
Great. All right. Thanks to I'm just assuming that the adjournment will be passed, but I wanted to thank everyone for attending. We had good attendance, and it's nice to get the counselors involved, and it's really vital to get the service uniform guys in. So thanks so much, and and Marco and everyone else. Continue to participate, continue to march, onward, lamp. We'll stand adjourned.
Thank you, Kirk.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kirk.
Guys.